Barcelona is an incredible city, a dream holiday for many. But are you wasting your money while you're here? After 14 years of living in and sharing the best of Barcelona with others, I still see so many tourists throwing away their hard-earned cash without even realizing it. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 10 ways that tourists keep wasting money and how you can easily avoid these mistakes so you can keep those extra euros in your pocket and make the most out of your trip. I think we have to start with tipping. Now this is a tough one because for some of us, it's so ingrained in our culture that we just can't shake it. But honestly, you don't have to tip. Now I'm not saying don't tip. If you want to, go ahead. But a 20% tip is not expected. When I first moved here, I went to a nicer restaurant with a friend who was showing me around. At the end of the meal, which ended up being about 70 euros for the two of us, he told me that he would get the bill and I could just leave the tip. And I asked him what was an appropriate tip to leave on a 70 euro bill, and he told me 2 euros. Now the American in me freaked out thinking that this was gonna be horrible, and keep in mind that 2 euros are coins, so it's even worse. But when I left the 2 euro tip, the waiting staff genuinely appreciated it and thanked us. Now, nobody came out and ran after us and demanded that we tipped more or anything like that. That's not gonna happen. What I've always thought is you don't have to feel pressure to leave a tip. But if you wanna leave one, rounding up the bill or even leaving a few euros will do. But apart from over-tipping, missing out on this next opportunity, especially at lunch, could have you spending a lot more than you think you will at restaurants in Barcelona. We always hear so much about tapas when we come over to Spain, and many times people think that they have to order them with every single meal. The thing is that tapas in Barcelona are done a little bit differently than they might be done in other regions of the country, where you go from bar to bar getting a different tapa, and you definitely won't find any places in Barcelona giving you a free tapa with your drink. In Barcelona, it's much more common to stay at one place, order several tapas, and share them amongst your friends. Now there's nothing wrong with that, but with tapas, you don't always know how to judge the portion size, and you want to make sure that you get enough food. Who hasn't been in that situation when their eyes are way too big for their stomachs? You end up ordering way too much food and more than you're gonna need, or you get into the other situation where with all this great food, you eat way too much. You end up ordering way too much food and spending way more than you need to. Or you get into the other situation where you can't let all that great food go to waste and you eat way too much. You don't have to order tapas at every meal, and what most people don't know is that your best option at lunch is actually to order the menú del día. This is a 3-course meal with a starter, main course, and a dessert with bread and a drink included for around a price of 10 to 15 euros. Taking advantage of the lunch menu is going to give you more than enough food and not have you with all those excess leftover tapas that are making you pay more than you actually needed to. But apart from specific dishes, are there certain areas of the city that you should avoid if you want to save money on food? I walk down La Rambla almost every day, and no matter how many times I do, I'm still surprised to see how many people sit down and eat at all these restaurants that line Barcelona's most famous boulevard. When I see the pictures of the food, all the yellow paellas, the waiters on the outside trying to usher you in, the colorful and oversized drinks, I see all of the signs of the things that I talked about in my video about how to spot a tourist trap in Barcelona. And with all the people that constantly are walking up and down La Rambla, it just doesn't look comfortable. Now, I really don't want to just pick on La Rambla. It's really when you go to restaurants around all of these popular tourist attractions, but there are so many better restaurants to go to all around the city than to eat at tourist traps like these. Yeah, it might be convenient and the deals might appear to be good, but it's really not going to be the best quality. You're not going to get the best bang for your buck. Now remember, in all of my videos, you can download my guide. You can take it with you to know where some of the best restaurants and some of my personal recommendations are in the city so that you'll be eating well and using your money better. Barcelona really isn't a big city, and most of the places that you're going to be visiting while you're here are within walking distance. Those that aren't can easily be reached on public transportation. Now, I'm a big proponent of taking advantage of the time that you're here and getting to see the city on foot. But there are times when that public transportation is really going to come in key, cut down those walking times, and with the price, it's definitely the way to go. Just to give you an idea, I spend about 22 euros a month on unlimited transportation throughout the city. The card that I use is the T-Usual. And if you're going to be here for more than a couple days, it's definitely the best way to go. Unlimited transportation throughout the month on all the buses, trams, trains, and anything within Zone 1, which encompasses all of Barcelona and even some of the outside areas. Just compare that to a single ride trip that's going to cost you about $2.55 to get anywhere. It's going to be a big savings. There's all sorts of other cards as well, like a T Casual, which is going to give you 10 individual trips, or if you want to share it, you have the T Familiar, which is going to allow you to have 8 trips that you can share amongst your family. Now, if you're only going to be here for a couple days and you're looking to get unlimited rides and visit some different museums, one option that might be the best card for you is the Barcelona card. Not only is it going to give you that unlimited transportation for 3, 4, or 5 days, but it's also going to get you free entrance or even some discounts into over 25 different attractions and museums. One of the biggest wastes of money that I see with tourists all over the city is taking taxis or those ride shares everywhere. Yes, it may seem more convenient and cheaper than maybe at home, but you're spending so much more money than you need to. Now, don't get me wrong. There are even times when I take taxis or use those ride-sharing apps to get to places around the city. And there's even specific attractions like the Park Güell, especially in the summer, that I always recommend you take a taxi to get up to. But with how cheap public transportation is and how well connected it is all around the city, it'd be a shame not to use it. And while it's not really a waste of money, apps like Uber don't always work too well here in Barcelona. And we don't have to get into why exactly, but it's super frustrating when you ask for that ride and you're just waiting and waiting for that ride to reconnect you with a new driver, and it just keeps you waiting. It's also a big hassle to have to download a Spanish app like Cabify or Bolt just for your trip here. Speaking of apps and phones, one of the biggest wastes of money while you're here could be right in your pocket. I've got a Spanish phone, so I don't worry about any roaming charges when I'm traveling around Europe. But I also pay extra to make sure that when I go back home and visit the States, I have the same coverage. It gives me some peace of mind to know that for any calls, messages, or data usage in general, I won't have any of those extra fees. But one of the last times I went over to Puerto Rico, I didn't do my homework, and when I got home, I had a really nice surprise on my next phone bill. The next time I went, I bought a SIM card. Check with your phone provider before coming, but I know that some carriers can charge as much as $10 a day to use your phone while you're here, and it doesn't always work. And if you plan on being here for a little bit, $10 a day can really start to add up. Companies here will offer SIM cards for next to nothing, allowing you to text, call, and browse online while you travel. There'll be all sorts of different kinds of deals, but for as little as 20 euros, you can get unlimited calling and enough data to download that entire Netflix series that you didn't finish while you were coming over on the plane. Not that you'll need it, because there's so much to do here in Barcelona. And let's be honest, having internet here is definitely going to help you getting around and making some of those last-minute bookings while you're here. But there are some places in Barcelona that you'll want to book ahead of time to make sure that you save some money. Some of the places that you'll want to visit while you're here in Barcelona require bookings in advance. Both the Sagrada Familia and the Park Güell are the top 2 places in the city that you'll need to book beforehand, or you'll miss out on your chance to see 2 amazing pieces of Gaudi's work. Both of them offer timed entrances, and you cannot book at the door. And while technically you won't be wasting any money, you could miss out on that experience to see the 2 most essential pieces of Gaudi's work in Barcelona if there aren't any tickets left when you get there. But other places like the Casa Milà or the Casa Batlló will actually be cheaper to buy tickets online than at the door. So making those reservations and planning ahead of time will actually save you money while you're here. Poor planning and not booking ahead is one of the biggest wastes of money for many tourists. But it's not just making those reservations in advance, it's also knowing which days you can get free admission. Many museums around the city are free every Sunday after 3 p.m., as well as the first Sunday of every month. Other museums like the Picasso Museum every Thursday evening are free to get into, but you will need to book in advance. Before coming, take a look at some of those must-see sites and see how they work out with your itinerary. You won't have to book everything down to the very last minute, but having a look at some of those sites, booking those ahead of time, and then moving on from there will definitely help out. And keep in mind that most museums are closed on Mondays, so if you have the flexibility, using that as a travel day could really help, or just try to book some other sites on those days. But where should you book those sites you definitely want to see? Believe it or not, it makes a difference in the price. It's not just about booking online, but about using the right sites. And remember, those official sites are going to give you the official prices. And in order to find those, it's as easy as Googling the name of the site that you want to visit and looking for the official Google business page. And they've all got them. But it's not always the first page you see that comes up. Many times those are the sponsored links that pay Google to be the first thing that you see when you Google a specific term. Now, they may look legit, but oftentimes they're selling those tickets for more than they're actually worth and not adding any extra value. But it's pretty easy to spot all those out. Usually they've got a little tag that says sponsored right above them. For example, if you type in Park Güell, one of the first things that comes up is the Park Güell official tickets, and it talks about those skip the line tickets as well. It looks legit, but if you click on the link for the tickets, it takes you to a site that sells entrances for 13 or 16 euros, when the official price is only 10 euros. It also tries to sell you some guided tours for about 32 euros, when those official prices are only 22. Now, if we go back to search, you can see that the actual official site just below it is going to be selling those tickets for only 10 euros. But poor planning can work both ways. A lot of times I see tourists wasting a lot of money, not because they didn't look ahead, but because they tried to book too much ahead instead. And I get it. There's a lot to see, and you don't know when or if you'll ever be back. It's easy to try to pack it all in and try to do everything while you're here. But I hate to break it to you, you can't. And that's okay. And I see it all the time with people who ask me to take a look at their itineraries. They try to squeeze too much in, and they don't budget their time well. You end up either missing those activities that you thought you'd be up for or canceling reservations. One of the biggest obstacles can be jet lag, and a lot of times people underestimate how bad it can hit you. You want to hit the ground running and you make reservations for either the day you land or early the next morning, and that might be a mistake. Give yourself some time to adjust so that you'll be enjoying the things that you'll be doing and seeing. Don't try to pack too much in and leave some time to explore. My advice would be to plan 1, maybe 2 activities a day. Maybe 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and plan around those 2. It would suck to have to cancel a reservation that you were really excited about. And even though those cancellation policies have gotten a lot more flexible, last-minute cancellations don't return you that money. Another problem I see with over-planning is taking a full-day trip outside of Barcelona and then wanting to do something early the next day. While there are a lot of different places that you can go to just outside of the city that make for some awesome day trips, a full day outside of Barcelona is a lot more tiring than you think, and you might want to rest the next morning before heading out on your next adventure. One of the main examples is taking a day trip to Andorra. It's actually not something that I would personally recommend, and it can take up to 12 to 13 hours of your day. Also, getting over to Madrid there and back in one day, which I've done in the past, takes its toll. Even those closer trips, like getting up to Girona or Costa Brava, can really affect how you feel the next day. But what about all those purchases that you'll be making in Barcelona? Is there a way to save money on each of them? It might not seem like it, but the exchange rate charged to those non-euro credit cards can really start to add up with each purchase. So if you're planning on paying with a credit card, you should always pay in the local currency. That way you're gonna avoid that double charge from the local banks and from your home bank, saving you money. You really won't need to carry cash around with you, and it's probably never a good idea to carry a lot of cash on your person. But if you do want to grab some cash out, plan ahead and bring some of that from home with you beforehand. Never go over to these currency exchanges or to those Euronet or similar ATMs that are all around town that'll give you some fast cash but charge ridiculous fees. Using a local Spanish bank here will give you better exchange rates and lower fees if you do need to pull out cash while you're here. And yes, almost everywhere here in Barcelona accepts credit card, so that's really all you'll need. Most people already know that hotels tend to cost more when you're traveling during that high season compared to the lower seasons, and Barcelona is no different. Traveling outside of that summer season is usually going to give you some lower hotel rates, and your best bet is coming between November and March. But Barcelona is such a popular city that even when you think you're traveling outside of that summer window with all the events, concerts, and holidays throughout the year, you'd be pretty surprised with how much a hotel will cost you. One of the biggest examples is traveling towards the end of February and coinciding with the Mobile World Congress, when over 100,000 people attend the biggest tech conference in the world. It's also the time during the year that Barcelona has the highest prices for its hotels. Another example would be coming during Easter week. That's a big boom in tourism, but that's also a time that changes depending on the calendar year. But there are a bunch of other festivals that change the prices of those hotels here in Barcelona that the best bet is to get online and look and see if you coincide with those. Traveling outside of those times is going to save you a lot on those hotels. But as we've already seen, some of the biggest wastes of money come from where you eat. And so that you don't end up in a tourist trap, watch this video next and you'll be able to spot all the red flags.